Today my mind has dived deep in thee. Today my mind has dived deep in thee. For thy pulse of love from thy depthless sea. For thy pulse of love from thy depthless sea. If I find not, I will not blame thy sea. If I find not, I will not blame thy sea. I will find fault with my diving. I will find fault with my diving. Today my mind has dived deep in thee. Today my mind has dived deep in thee. For thy pulse of love from thy depthless sea. For thy pulse of love from thy depthless sea. If I find not, I will not blame thy sea. If I find not, I will not blame thy sea. I will find fault with my diving. I will find fault with my diving. Today my mind has dived deep in thee. Today my mind has dived deep in thee. For thy pulse of love from thy depthless sea. For thy pulse of love from thy depthless sea. If I find not, I will not blame thy sea. If I find not, I will not blame thy sea. I will find fault with my diving. I will find fault with my diving. Today my mind has dived deep in thee. 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 Let's offer a prayer together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, friend, beloved God, great masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar Ji, our beloved Guru Paramhans Yogananda Ji, saints of all religions, our friend and guide Swami Kriyananda Ji, we humbly bow before you all O great masters, beloved Christ, we invite your presence, your Christ consciousness at our spiritual eye. May we live in your presence. May we share your presence. And through our prayers, service, and meditation, may we merge our consciousness entirely in yours. We are your children. Come to us now and live in our hearts always. Om. Peace. Amen. Let's meditate, friends, for 2 to 3 minutes, especially on this very sacred weekend of Palm Sunday, this weekend of our celebration and satsang together. As Christ said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there in the midst of them am I. Let us invite and feel his presence uplifting us. We listen now to Swami Kriyanandaji's words on the subject of God remembrance, and then we will affirm together. He writes, to remember God means not only to think of him constantly, but to realize that finding him is an act of remembrance truly. For it is from him that we have come. When the clouds of delusion evaporate from our minds, what will be left is what was there always, hidden behind the clouds, the blazing sun of divine consciousness. One should not strain or reach outward mentally to think of God. Know that he has been yours always, nearer than your nearest thoughts and feelings, nearer than the very prayers you offer him. Think not merely about him, think to him. Share with him your passing feelings, your idlest fancy. Talk with him. Practice his presence, at first perhaps for minutes a day, then for hours, and then all the time. Let us affirm together. I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth. Bliss infinite, eternal love. I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth. Bliss infinite, eternal love. I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth. Bliss infinite, eternal love. Now, only mentally, impregnating this affirmation in our subconscious thinking and habit patterns. I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth. Bliss infinite, eternal love. And now, at the point between the two eyebrows, the spiritual eye, also called the seat of superconsciousness or Christ consciousness, I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth. Bliss infinite, eternal love. Inwardly, let us pray. Lord, thou art always with me. Help me to feel behind my thoughts thy inspiration, behind my every emotion thy calm, all transforming love. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Good morning, everybody. Once again, it's just wonderful. You know, sometimes you enter such a program or retreat and you're like, can we do this every day? Oh, and you know, people do that in a higher yuga, higher ages. That's how you live. That's the most important thing in life. We remind each other. I'm sure in the higher ages, society reaches a point where mass consciousness is centered that way. You know, it's interesting. Paramahansa Yogananda ji said, and if anybody's, relatively, I know some of my friends have started recent classes, so some of the themes I'll cover now of yugas and some of this will be covered, the chakras will be covered in your subsequent classes. But Yogananda's guru, Sri Yukteswarji, he said, we are in a higher age of energy. It's not hard to feel that, I think. He said, this is called the age of Dwapara. And he said, how do you know? How does a person know that the age is such? And it's more importantly, you could say, well, it could be whatever age, but what concerns me is, am I? It's like, it's like Yogananda said, you're not really awake in God. He said, till you are in bliss. And it's a very humbling statement, because Swami said, the truth is then we are sleeping. Most of us are sleeping. And he would say that. I remember towards the end of his life, Swami, he would begin to say a few things, whether it was God or he would start my guru, and he would just choke up and of feelings and devotion that, and then he would try to, of course, then continue. And I remember once he was telling us, he said, when I'm driving somewhere, he said, I look in the streets to the left and right, and he said, I see God everywhere. I see my master in everybody. But he said, he has to be woken up. He said, God is everywhere, in everything. And he said, we must wake him up. And so, Sri Yukteswarji said, how do you know you're in a higher age? He said, your heart reaches a point where it is established in the search for God. And he said, you seek out other people who are also looking for the same truth, joy, freedom, and when you unite, and which is why Master spoke of communities, which is why we have gathered over here, which is why Christ, who is in our line of gurus, he said, where two or three are gathered in my name, there in the midst of them am I. Now, yes, once in a while, sometimes he has manifested himself, his body. St. Francis of Assisi saw him. I went to that place in La Verna Monastery, and I'll share a story shortly about that. And Master confirmed that. Yogananda ji was there. He said, there is this piece of rock which is still there. And he said, Christ used to sit on that every evening. He used to come in his form. And Francis, because he was trying to merge with him. And it's so interesting how the masters play with us. And it's very consoling that they at least played like this with the saints also. And he said, St. Francis was weeping and calling to him and calling to him. And he's come, and he would let him rest his head on his lap. And he said, then of course Christ would leave after some time. And Francis would be like, take me with you. Why don't you stay? And it's such an interesting aspect of our lives that when we find that, it almost seems subtle in today's times, little distant, because like I was saying, that reminder is not there. People say ignorance is bliss. Why? Because it doesn't require energy. Well, none of this happens. This is all make up stuff. These miracles never happened. People have, of course, so many have said Christ never lived. Masters don't live. Fortunately, in my brief life, I have met some saints. I'll tell you, a few stories about Swami Kriyanandaji. There was simply no way physics or neuroscience can prove these things. Yesterday, I was sharing the story of a lady saint who never knew me. She was in silence for 62 years. I knew her son, and we happened to meet. And it was just staggering how she knew everything about me. And like I was saying yesterday, I've met mind readers. Actually, I've met, they're very bothered, by the way, some of them, when they finally come to the point. If that's all you know, what's what's new, as they say. So I met this gentleman. I was once told in 2008 that somebody has a challenge, so they'll be coming to our temple. Many of us are going out. Can you stay back and talk to him? I said, sure, I'll do that. So I was waiting just like this in front of the altar by a chair, and this young man walked in. So I didn't know what was the challenge, what's the problem. My background is in medicine. I thought it's something related to health. So he came in, and Swami used to say, somebody's got involvement with the ego just by the energy over here, or their posture also becomes a little bit. So you imagine you walk into a church a little bit like this, and so I saw this young man come in. I said, hey, are you? So he said, yes, yes. I said, welcome, come. He's like, and so he came in, and I said, how can I help you? And the first thing he says is, he said, I know all your thoughts. So I said, well, that's fine, but I thought you had a challenge. I was told there's something you're struggling with, and how can I help you? And then he just softened down, and because and then he said, I don't know why. One day I was just working, and just like that, I know people's thoughts. And he said, I told my boss who was in the office that his daughter is struggling with something. And he's like, who are you? How do you know these things? So anyway, but he said, so many people's thoughts cross my mind that I'm not able to function. He said, I am not able to carry on with my life. And he said, how did this start, and how can we put an end to this? So I said, well, there was this picture of Master. He believed in Master. I said, you must have asked for it, friend, in some life. And I said, all things come from God. Just pray to Master since you have devotion to him. I said, just tell him, I want you. They say, I want the creator. I want the giver of gifts. I don't want these gifts. So it goes very interestingly in so many directions. But I was saying that, because there are these spectrums as we go high. This is one of the milestones. I'll tell you another one or two examples. A friend of mine, when I was working in a hospital, we used to sit, chant, and meditate sometimes. And he was a pharmacist. And he came to me one day. And he said, sorry, sir, I'm late by 45 minutes to come, because he would open the pharmacy. And I said, no, that's fine. He said, you know what happened? I couldn't find my bike keys today. And I was looking all over the place. But he said, the strangest thing is this. When I was asking my parents, have you seen my keys? Have you seen the keys? He said, my dad said, why don't you call your uncle? And who is this uncle? This man, they were Mohammedans, Muslims, and they had just finished the 40-day fasting, Ramadan. And his uncle, surprisingly, had called my friend's father, friends, and he just said to him, he said, brother, I don't know what you'll make of it, but after this fast, I'm just able to find lost objects. So he said, I've called you to tell you, if you ever lose something, let me know. I might fuse. And this man again, you don't know what to make of these things. He said, okay, thank you, have a good day. And so my friend is frantically looking for these keys, and his dad was reading the newspaper. He said, oh, call your uncle in that city, he'll help you. And this boy said, why not? So he called him. He said, I've lost my bike keys. And he said, this is exactly how it happened. He said, okay. He said, now why don't you go to your bed and look on the right side of the pillow between the edge of the bed's frame and the mattress. And the keys were there. And what my friend was then asking me is, how is this possible? And I said, I don't know. But what I do know is that we all live in this realm of matter. But there is a realm of energy, like we were discussing yesterday. There is a realm of thoughts. And all of these things have simply come from consciousness. Like yesterday we were discussing, you think about somebody, you see them, you meet them, you hear from them sometimes. So it's not so much important to see in time and space and future. Those are, master called it a little bit like spiritual entertainment. Once it makes you think what's really going on. It makes you think that there is this seemingly hard, solid reality has some fluidity, it seems. There is something behind the veil, but that's certainly not the goal. So many times we simply give up, or we get bogged down by these experiences, and you say, I don't know where God is. I'll pick it up next time. And we say ignorance is bliss. But is it really? Giving up is simply not the option. We have to, because what is God really? What is super consciousness or Christ consciousness? Why do the saints, Swami said, the saints who have found him, you and I, on one level, have the right to give up. On some level, you're like, well, I'm not getting any results. On the other hand, Swami said, look at the universal testimony of the saints. They who have seen him or experienced him, found him, Christ, they are willing to sacrifice anything to be in him, to bring that message to other people, to remind us. Christ's reminders cost him his life. But he was willing to do that. Master said, I will come, if need be, 1,000,000,000 times with bleeding feet over crags of suffering, as long as one stray brother is sitting weeping by the wayside. And you wonder, where does this level of love, compassion, and what's on the other side? What is he trying to bring me to? Like I said, I am happy in my ignorance, but that the masters tell us sooner or later we wake up from it and it doesn't work. So let's come to this subject of Christ consciousness. And, on one level, it is deep, esoteric, and it's good to grapple with these concepts. It's mind stretching, if nothing else. On the other hand, frankly, let me say this in the beginning itself. The only thing our masters and Swami said required, if you have to take one thing to find God, to find Christ consciousness, it has to be love for him. Even in the world, you simply don't get anything if your heart is not into it. Like people would sometimes even say, be devoted to your craft. They won't say study your craft. Study is as deep as your devotion. But if you're devoted, then it's almost like the inert book or subject starts talking to you. It's like a shy friend. And when you have finally proven your loyalty, that you are there for them, not for anything they will offer, then they start opening up and start talking to you. So we were taking a 3-day seclusion at this beautiful monastery of La Verna in Italy. And so we were in sort of silence and were wearing, at that time I used to wear bright yellow clothes. So, we were sprinkled here and there, and then we would be moving around in meditating in different spots with our mala and asan. And on the second day, this elderly Indian nun, who was one of the nuns over there, she came up to me. She was of Indian origin. I had seen her, she had seen me, but I was not talking, so I would not make too much of an eye contact. And she came up to me on day 2. She said, I saw you yesterday in different places, and some of your brothers there with you. I said, yeah, we are all the people in bright yellow. We are in a group. And she said, yeah, you're meditating here and there. She said, what exactly do you do? So I said, sister, we meditate, we focus at the point between the two eyebrows. We do certain techniques with the breath. And she said, who has taught you these things? And I said, well, there's the saint Paramahans Yogananda. We follow his teachings. She said, oh, I've read that. Autobiography of a yogi? I said, autobiography of a yogi. She said, Aditya, but 20 years ago, I tried to focus over here. Somebody was teaching me a meditation. It gave me such a terrible headache. I gave up. And I said, that shouldn't be. I said, it can happen. There are reasons. I said, I won't go in the detail, but I said, it can give you a headache, but it shouldn't. It's actually for hours you can meditate like that. She said, really? Can you teach me? I said, sure. I said, when? She said, oh, here. So we were in the corridor and she just opened this door and we were sitting in a room. And she said, okay, what do I have to do? I said, well, sit up straight. And I said, just relax. And I said, now gently lift your gaze behind closed eyelids. And I said, now it's as if you're looking through the spiritual eye. And I said, just follow your breath a little bit over there, the pauses between the breath. And I said, let's try to stay there. Now, I was keeping my eyes open because she had a headache. So I wanted to see if she was straining her forehead and muscles and eyes too much. So we meditated just 2 minutes. And then I said, Amen, Amen, Om. So she gently opened eyes. And I said, how was it, sister? And she said, it was so peaceful. I said, headache? She said, no, no headache. I said, wonderful. She said, but tell me, what was that golden tunnel inside of which there was a deep blue tunnel? And at the end, there was a 5-pointed star. She said, because when you said Amen, I had to come out of it. I was like, oh. And I said, well, it's called the spiritual eye. It's in everybody. You could be a Catholic, you could be a Hindu, you could be an atheist, you could be whoever, anybody. It's simply how the inner spiritual anatomy is. And when I saw that, and of course, she had sweetness, she had devotions, which is why I said, it's okay. We can't love something we don't understand. And Christ consciousness, little bit, or Krishna consciousness, or cosmic consciousness, and super consciousness, and absolute spirit, these terms are wonderful because they're trying in different ways to express a concept or different concepts. And sometimes because we are trying to find the perfect definition, we may miss the point that it's not about the definition, it's about the experience. And lo and behold, I mean, how would you define your right hand? You can try in different ways, but it's a part of you. So if the spiritual eye, if Christ, Krishna, God, and I'll explain this concept now, if he or she, if that reality is inside me, and I seek it, then how can I get closer to it? A few days ago, I was at the Greenwood Cemetery in New York. And I don't know about you, but I enjoy going to cemeteries. It's just humbling. It's wonderful reminder. It's like, I was there. I will soon be there. I was like, okay. And just like, that so many things are going on in life that you simply forget many times what's the priority, what are we here for? And so, what is Christ consciousness? Well, the way the masters have described it is, it's a very simple concept. Let's start the other way. Let's say somebody is in a grave, those souls. When people walk down by life, I've seen people as a doctor whose bodies were broken by accidents or illness to such a degree. I remember this one patient that from one day to the other, he had pancreatitis, then led to surgeries, and the family was stunned with how this was going. What can we do about it? And I said, this is life threatening. He's in the ICU. We are doing our best. And then one day I remember his son told me, he said, now you go inside and talk to him straight in the eyes and look at him and tell him his granddaughter's wedding has come. He knows about it. He had planned it. And he has to get well, and motivate him. I said, okay, I'll do my best. So I went in. This very sweet person, but you hardly have energy, all these pipes coming out of him and all. I held his hand, but I remember I had not come on the spiritual path, but I remember that morning. Now I would call it an aura, but he was looking so bright. Not a light around him, just how his skin was suffused with light. So I looked at him and I said, hey, looks like you're getting well. He had no energy to speak. He had a tracheostomy. He couldn't say anything. And then I looked at his reports. I said, reports are slightly better. You are looking well. Your family's behind this door, and there's a wedding coming, as you know. You must get well. Apply your will, and we are giving you the best treatment. And I said, put this behind you now. So after my lecture was over, he looked at me like this, and just these two teardrops came from the corner of his eyes. And with all his strength, he just moved. First of all, he had this beatific smile, and then he just shook his head like this. And I was like, why? It's like I thought I was not able to motivate him because I said, he's going up. But I could understand you get bogged down when such a crisis is happening. Well, an hour and a half later, I got a call that he had left his body. Now, the interesting thing was when I look back, and especially after I came on the path and I read about these things, I said, oh my goodness, my friend the angels were there, as I would put it. He knew he was so broken in body that the divine was consoling him in some way. And here I come along, oh, you must get out of this room. And he's like, don't pull me back in the body. Let me go. They'll handle the wedding and all of it. And that is a reality, that we so many times when we are that challenged, even the most worldly person who may not have read a single line of a scripture, they will say, I long for the peace, as Swami used to say, of death. All I want is peace, because we have come from peace. And this is the concept. God became everything. You and me, everything. God is out of creation, but Lahari Mahashaya ji said 1% of himself he has made into what we call almost an infinite creation, and we find ourselves in it. And why do we go back to sleep every night? We want that peace. Why do we sit with good friends? Why do we take a vacation? Why do we want money, name, fame? Because at least temporarily, it gives us rest. I was once doing a stress management workshop in India. And I said, there are many ways to manage stress. Some work, some don't. I said, for example, alcohol doesn't work. Now, I was about to go ahead, and he said, excuse me, I don't agree with that. He said, when I have stress, I drink, and my stress goes away. How can you say alcohol doesn't help with stress management? So I said, okay, pause. I said, no, you're right. It does help temporarily. You get a stress, you leave the scene of stress, open your whiskey or whatever, you take a few gulps and you feel good. He said, yeah, I do. And I said, that's wonderful. I said, now, what happens after some time? I said, does the alcohol take the cause of stress away? He said, no. That's why I drink again and again. I said, now, my friend, that is not a solution. I said, I'm talking not of 10 minutes of stress management. Like Christ said, I have not come to bring peace. I have come to bring the sword, that once and for all, it's not the couch or the ignorance or the alcohol that's going to give you bliss. It is bliss alone. It is God alone. It is that fleeting voice inside of us which says, no, 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 don't give up, Aditya. It is possible, and look for it. Like Swami Kriyanandaji, when he was going to, this challenge where he was thrown out of Yoganandaji's organization due to a misunderstanding. And he was like, after 14 years, all the people I loved, worked with, we all were with Yogananda. And he said, I was thrown out singularly on my years. And he said, I felt so alone. And Anand Mohima, he reached out to Anand Mohima, the great saint of India, and she said to him, I'm praying for you, but please try to see this as the grace of your Guru. Now, the grace is the highest of all things that God and Guru give. And Swami said, grace of my Guru? He said, I couldn't reconcile how this pain can be grace. And he said, but one day he was invited to sing. It was in San Francisco, I believe. And he was invited to sing in a place, and he told them many times, he said, don't make me sing. He said, I don't think you should invite somebody. They said, no, no, you should sing. We've heard your cassettes. And Swami says, that was from another time. I'm not feeling well right now. And they said, no, no, please, at least 2 songs. So Swami said somehow he obliged for their sake. They were good friends, and he sang. But the interesting thing was, he said, afterwards, so many people came to him and said, thank you for those songs. We felt so much bliss. I said, bliss? And again and again and again, when people said, we felt bliss, then Swami said, I'm not feeling bliss. How did they feel bliss? Now, maybe the songs and the words can induce that, but that night he meditated. And he said, I went below the flowing waters of suffering in myself, in my spine, in my life. There's the soup on the surface. It could be a storm going on. And he said, I went below that and I found a river of bliss. So he said, we have to simply have the openness and the faith, some little courage to say, let me look for it. Let me dig over here. They say there is oil over here. Let me give it a try. And so when we give that, and this is the point between the 2 eyebrows, you could be the most restless person in the world, Kriyanandaji said. But if you focus there, you will become a shining light of peace and calmness. Because now it's a little cruel of God to have created this whole dream in the first place, where his children is like almost a prince having nightmares of poverty. Because, it's like, why do you allow that? But again, we don't know. On one level, I was once introspecting on this, and I said, this is not fair on God's part. And I had this thought, which I could not kind of deny. I tell you if you can. I said, Master said, God created this world. He said, but that is partially correct. It is more to say he has become this world. He has become, because he said, what would he create out of? It's not God is here, things are there. God alone exists. That's what the saints have said. So he has become. So, well, if he has become Aditya, do I really have a right to complain? Exactly. On one level, I can. From an egoic point, I can continue. Well, what about me and poor me? But God can say, well, it's like a mom would say, well, once you're tired of crying, we'll talk. So I can whine, but that whining doesn't help. And Swami said, instead, when he looked inside, he said, I found the bliss that they were talking about. And more importantly, that was the true, stronger reality, not those years where he was suffering. So if this reality is inside of us, if God, who has become everything, but in becoming everything, he has also planted himself at the heart of everything. Simply, he's there in the atoms in each one of us. Then if he's there, let's look for him, let us abide in him, and that state of consciousness, when while we are in creation, And we can say, okay, I have not yet merged in him, but I have seen him, I have tasted him, and I want him more and more. And of course, a saint says, like Master said, I live at the point between the two eyebrows all the time. He says, that's how you know somebody's a master. Once Master was cooking for 200 people, and there was a big pot, and he and a few monks were cooking on and on and on. The dish was about to get ready, and one monk said, Sir, let's at least sample it once to see the salt and spices. And Master looked at him so quizzically. He said, I've been tasting it all the time over here. And this monk was quite perplexed. He said, Here? He said, whatever. And Swami used to say, he said, all the senses are interestingly represented. All the chakras are represented over here. So again, it's a fun be. And that's another motivation that if, and you know, even in the from a neuroscience perspective, now you may say, well, what's the proof of it? You know, just like the saints talk about chakras and different things, in the neuroscience world, in the physical body, we have nerve plexuses. You know, here's a 1,000-petal lotus. Well, the brain is very different from that. The point in the two eyebrows is very important for our spiritual enlightenment. Well, this is also called the chief executive function area of our brain. This is where we make decisions. This is where empathy, kindness, openness to learn new things, perseverance, willpower, concentration, when you have to concentrate, so many people, even again, nobody with no a little child, you tell him, focus on your subject. He's like, So they somehow knit the eyebrows. Actually, animals too. They may not have a fully formed prefrontal lobe, but Master was once giving a sermon on this reality of the kutastha, which is also what it is called. And Master took a piece of bread. A dog came by while he was sitting, and Master said, look at this now. He took a little piece of bread and threw it in front of the dog, and the dog looked at it. He sniffed and he knit his eyebrows, and Master said, see, he's focusing at the point between the two eyebrows. Because you have to decide, is it good for me? Is it not? So it's a very interesting place. Now, let me give one more example of Lahari Mahashaya, because it's good to know that these things are practical. You know, many times we think of a saint, or people ask the question, well, all these teachings are fine, but what about the real world? Or, you know, how does Ananda help out there? Now, Ananda helps in many ways. We all, I think, all do what we see in front of us. But Lahari Mahashaya was once giving a sermon on Christ consciousness, Kuthastha Chaitanya, as he was calling it in his language. And he was expounding on it, and suddenly he let out a cry. Help, help! I'm drowning off the coast of Japan. The disciples, they were in Banaras. These disciples are in Banaras. We're talking over 120 years ago. What's going on? Who's drowning near Japan? And he says, help, help. I'm drowning off the coast of Japan. And then he continued with his lecture. And next day they saw in the newspaper headlines that a boat had capsized outside of the shore. A ship actually had capsized outside Japan, and many people died. Well, the consoling factor was they were not alone. Lahari Mahashaya was with them. They are always with them. So a saint, it is staggering to our mind, because you and I travel to a place. We talk about yesterday, we talk about tomorrow. But imagine somebody who is everywhere all the time equally. That is what a saint is. They've become one with God. One time, you know, Swamiji was giving us a satsang, and he spoke of different things. And then towards the end, he said, you know, one time I was working in the office at Mount Washington, and somebody let out a cry, there's a snake in the women's monastery, there's a snake. And he said, there was no other person to deal with the situation. So he said, I said, where? And he took a stick and they showed him the snake, and he said he killed it. And then some people who knew about snakes came, and they said, oh, this was a simple desert snake. It is not venomous. And Swami felt very bad about it, that, you know, he killed him. And so he said 3 days passed like that. And the third day he was trying to meditate in his house. He just couldn't get rid of, whenever he would sit to meditate, that thought would come to him. And he said he was not able to meditate. And when he was trying to do this on the third day, Master walked into his room. And the Master said, Walter, can you boil me a jug of water? And Swami said, yes, sir. And he boiled him some water. And once it was boiling, Master said, come with me. And they went out in the garden, and there was an ant hill, which everyone knew is a live ant hill. Master said, pour the water inside. And Swami poured it and, and didn't say anything about it. So Swami told us that story. And he said, Master told me, pour it. He said, I poured it. And then Master left. And then Swami said, well, everybody, thank you for coming. Have a wonderful day. And people got up and tried to leave. Now, I had a meeting 5 minutes later with him. So I went out temporarily, and then I was just meditating, doing some pranayam to go back in. So somebody came up to me. They said, now, you have a meeting with Swamiji? I said, yes. They said, can you do me a favor? He told us that story, but he didn't explain why he put boiling water in that anthill. And I said, yes. So they said, can you please ask him? And I said, okay. And the person they left, they said, thank you. And I thought about it because I inwardly got it, that why he told me. And I said, now wait a minute. Why did I say yes to asking that question? Swami just said it. I'll go back and again have to repeat it or bother him. Plus, it's my time. It was not even my question. I felt a little awkward about the whole thing. But I had said yes. So I said, once you've said yes, you should do it. Swami said, if you've said you'll do something, you have to do it. So anyway, I went around, I energized some and kind of came back. And remember, Swami was hard of hearing. And I was having this conversation at least 30 meters away when we all had by the time walked out. So at the right time, I knocked in and he said, come in. I came in. And he said, Aditya, one time I was working at the office of Mount Washington. And I was right in front of him before that. And he said, I was working at the office of Mount Washington, and there's somebody said, snake, snake. And I picked up a stick, and he narrated the whole story. And I was like, okay, okay. And he said, and Master told me, pour that water in that anthill. I said, okay. And he said, I think he told me to do that so I would get rid of that consciousness of guilt altogether. Because for a human being to spend 3 days not being able to meditate deeply, it's not worth it. And he said, in the scale of the soul's evolution, there's the mineral, plant, animal, and human being. And he says to waste time on this level is a very expensive thing. And that's exactly what I had in mind. That's exactly the message I had found. And I was like, yes, Swamiji. And then he looked very gently, like, a true saint, it's interesting. We get something and somehow it increases many times, the ego, the pride, like my friend who had walked. I know your thoughts. Well, a man, when he becomes one with everything, simply bows down in humility because he has finally been given the grace to become one with God. It's like God has invited you, welcomed you back home. He has given you the inheritance that is rightfully yours. And if it's rightfully yours, where's the pride? What's the pride? What's the fuss all about? So, on one level, it seems like a very big thing, and it is. But it is also, the masters say, our natural state. And he said, if we do not keep moving in that direction, it will not happen by itself. And he said, some steady work, some steady progress, and the grace of God and Guru. And you discuss some of these things and you realize, God, I need a guru. Because in the beginning, people, I don't need a guru. I brush my own teeth. I have a nice job. I meditate. I'm a self-made person. Yes, but let's open up the past. Let's talk about the journey. Let's look at the map. Where are you and where do you have to go? And then you realize I need help, primarily from somebody who has experienced this and who has done this journey. So what we now do, I'll take some questions and then we will go into we'll write on the sheets, how do we go towards Christ consciousness? And we'll do some experiential steps along the way and what has worked for you. I mean, now, if somebody is a saint, maybe out of humility, you don't want to say it. But how do we go in that state of consciousness and stay there? how can we experience? How do we know we are there and not somewhere else? So, but before that, any questions about this? You know, no questions means two things. I understood everything you have said. Or what did he just say? So I'll take it to be the first and we'll proceed into our class now. Yeah. So let's bring an, can somebody volunteer to be the scribe? Are you going to do that, Kelly? Okay. So, thank you. So how do we go about this? If the goal is to bring our awareness, our energy at the point between the two eyebrows, what are some things that could help us? Because it's good to discuss these things, but the more important thing is in daily life. How are we going to know we are going towards this milestone? Less TV, okay. So let's write first less distractions because it's true, you know. Master, I mean, this is a retreat. I won't be mincing words. Master called TV satanic. And Swami explained that. He said, you see, it should be under your control. Everything should be under your control. Self-control, that's one of the chakras. If something again and again is taking you out there, you know, when the program is over, the happiness gets over. Master used to go to movie theaters and take people, and you know, they would be all engrossed in the movie. And just when the climax would come, people would notice again and again, Master's eyes are closed, and they would say, "Master, open your eyes now, don't sleep." And he said, "I'm not sleeping. You watch the movie. I'm watching another movie." Master said he used to go to movie theaters so that phone calls wouldn't disturb him. I think now, if he had a mobile phone, he would differently. But so keeping away from distractions, because just putting an end to it. Okay, end in the sense a limit to it. Okay, what is that? Cell phone, yeah. By extension, social media, whatever. Reading too. See, reading is wonderful. But Master said, think of God all the time. Read some, meditate more, think of God all the time. Because again, if once reading is inspiring, a quote is inspiring, but what are we doing about it? That inspiration, and people say, well, this is how it is. No. Master said you can be happy all the time. Now, all the time, between now and all the time is a spectrum, but he said keep moving towards the spectrum where, especially, he said very practically, he said after a decade has gone by of being on the path, he said by then you should usually half the time at least you should be happy in the day. Then he said after some more years have gone by and large, you should be happy. And then he says, toward the end of your life, you should be happy all the time, which is exactly how Swami used to say. He said openly, he said, now I'm in bliss all the time. Okay. Sit up straight. Sit up straight. Thank you. The bent spine is the enemy of self-realization. So one time I was coming after making a pitch for fundraising for a social cause some years ago, and I had tried for months in different areas and nothing was working. And I remember coming from Mumbai after talking to this very senior executive, and he didn't buy into what we were trying to do. Anyway, I was dejected, I was sad, and I was thinking, oh, he didn't even give me time. I drove for 6 to 8 hours. I got 10 minutes with him. And suddenly I asked myself, I said, where are you going, Aditya? Here you're trying to fundraise for a joyful event and you are not in joy. You're blaming this person. And I said then, but the mind reasons, no, I'm right. And I said, now let's do something about this. How is your posture? So I said, my posture is bent. So I said, okay, I'll give you 2 minutes. Let's start breathing and straighten up the posture and let's see how this works. So I remember I was like this. I was like, And in the beginning, it was hard because Swami said these states have their own magnetism. I'm complaining and I'm liking it. So first of all, you have to break that I'm not liking it. I want to come out of it. So I remember I was like, then you feel like a little silly that why am I sitting and breathing so deeply? Oh yeah. And suddenly 2 minutes later, I said, of course, just because I'm doing something nice does not oblige somebody to say yes to it. He could have all the money in the world, but why should he support me? And I was suddenly so happy about the whole situation. And by the end of it, God gave us plenty. We could donate a lot for the cause we were raising. But you see, keeping the spine straight, because the life force has to flow the spine. And that is one thing. And by extension, what thing we could do, what's also happening in the spine? Diaphragmatic breathing. Looks very simple, but is fundamental. Every breath should be a diaphragmatic breath. Yes. Something going on and they can't do this. Absolutely. So it is not mandatory. It is suggested. For example, in India, there was a very great saint. His name was Ashtavakra, which means he who was born with 8 deformities. And he was a very great saint. People to this day read his books. So again, it is suggested because it helps. If your posture, if you stretch, if you run, if you exercise, you by and large feel good, but the spirit is not confined by posture. So it can be overcome. And many of these things, moving the energy up the spine to this point, can be done, ultimately must be done mentally. It starts with the breath, starts with the posture, but it is not limited by those. Good question. Yes. So, talk about all these ways that to a certain degree, like as much as I can, and it becomes overwhelming to keep my energy that high. Okay. I'm wondering what happens when you get to that. Like, what are ways to relax upwardly? I think you answered it. And let's discuss some ways, but that's exactly what Master said to Swamiji. Swami was like, I'm going to find God. He was gritting his teeth and clenching his fists. And one day he said to Master, I'm not progressing the way I was feeling early on. Am I not trying too hard? And Master said, you're trying too hard. He says, the first thing we must emphasize on the spiritual path is relaxation. But then Swami would add, relax upwardly. So it's not a relaxation. Now, it's okay to be in a couch, but it's not an armchair philosophy. It's okay for the body to be rested some like this, but sooner or later and more, we want to relax upwardly. Another thing I would say is Swami said, get used to peace, which is to say, in our mind, peace is a hard earned gift. So we're like, oh, I'll get only so much of it. And I know it's going to come and go. No, it is like Swami said, wake up and tell yourself, I am kindness itself. Instead of saying, I have to be kind, I have to be kind, I have to be peaceful. You say, I'm a prince of peace. I am peace itself. And yes, we may slip, but 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Don't feel bad. You see, you have to give Maya or Satan its due because he's here to test our resolve. It's this is a world of duality. So when you really make up your mind, you'll find a lot of people at the base camp of the Everest. You'll find many more in the plains. But from the base camp, those who have the resolve will go up. They are the ones who start facing the challenge. So we try, but then you sit and relax. You see the longer rhythms. We've been at it for many incarnations. All right. Anybody else? Yeah. Faith in God. Beautiful. Master got his first experience of cosmic consciousness. By the way, if this is the seat of super consciousness and Christ consciousness, this is the seat of cosmic consciousness. He got it the day his meditations were restless. He was restless in his meditation, but he was in his guru's ashram, and his guru's grace and faith gave it to him. Faith in the guru. Again, underscores how important that is. I saw a cartoon many years ago, and there was a rich man in downtown somewhere looking up at the skyscrapers in a suit. And there was a beggar next to him with a little mala beads. So this man looking up, he says, only 10 minutes of meditation a day. By 10 minutes of meditation a day, I have conquered this world. And this beggar is very kindly smiling, and he says, if you meditate longer, you won't have to conquer the world. You will become the world. Because, some is good and we can all do some, but when it starts going, when the mind is restless, you can still find God, because your guru is not seeing how you are today. They don't even see how you're in one incarnation. They see all the things you've put out. Let me actually read exactly what Master writes over here. This is page 146. Yogananda ji writes from the chapter Experience in Cosmic Consciousness. A master bestows the divine experience of cosmic consciousness when his disciple, by meditation, has strengthened his mind to a degree where the vast vistas would not overwhelm him. The experience can never be given through one's mere intellectual willingness or open-mindedness. Only adequate enlargement by yoga practice and devotional bhakti can prepare the mind to absorb the liberating shock of omnipresence. It comes with a natural inevitability to the sincere devotee. Now that is so comfortable. All you have to be is sincere. It comes with a natural inevitability to the sincere devotee. His intense craving begins to pull at God with an irresistible force. The Lord, as the cosmic vision, magnetic ardor into his range of consciousness. So God comes to us wherever we are. Like they say that when the disciple is ready, the guru appears. And when the disciple is further ready in his efforts, then God, it's so amazing how God must be talking to the saints, and then they, at the right time, will give us that experience. Okay, now a little bit tied to the word faith. Yeah, we'll keep filling many pages over here. I have 3 pages in my own diary. Now, faith, master, that's one word. Is antariksha here? Okay, wonderful. So, faith, what's the Hindi word for faith? Have faith, we say in God or something. Shraddha. Okay, what else? Faith. Have faith. Vishwas. Vishwas, yeah. Bhagwan mein vishwas kijiye, vishwas. Now, interestingly, Master translated that Hindi word in English. He said, Vishwas literally means bina shwas. Without, shwas is breath, and vishwas means without breath. So Master said, if you have to test your own faith, it will come to the degree your breath is existent or restless. So somebody is like, well, I wonder what's going to happen. Well, your breath is reflecting your state of mind, feelings, and if we talk of spiritual matters, the breath is an impediment. It's almost like you're trying to shoot a target, but it's coming in the way. So Master said, by meditation, Kriya Yoga, Hong Saw, get the breath out of the way. And breath is, of course, deep because breath is linked to desires. It is linked to ego, as I was saying yesterday. So one has to work on one's attitudes, yamas and niyamas, and other do's and don'ts, whatever works for each person. And when we are relaxed and clear about certain things that, okay, I now know what I have to do, these are things that help me and these things don't help me, then you see that the breath starts receding, especially in meditation. And once the breath goes away in meditation, for let's say even a short while, You know that because you're not dead, first of all. Don't be afraid. Yeah. This is not that kind of breathlessness. This is the breathlessness where you're so relaxed. Master called it the state of super relaxation. He said, you're so relaxed, you don't need to breathe. Oxygen is not required anymore. Life force from the medulla is enough to take care of everything. For example, in daytime, we breathe more. At sleep, heart rate, breath rate go down by at least 50, 60%. In deep meditation, they can go away altogether, especially breath goes first. So when breath goes away, you are awake and you say, I am spirit. I am this light. I am the sound of Om, because when the breath goes away, these experiences come to the forth. And you say that now I know I am a soul in a body, not a body who is doubting its being a soul. Does that make sense? So faith can be tested by the degree of our and the rate of our breath also, Master said. He was interesting. He had a good balance of being mathematical and precise about our practices. All right, reaching cost music. Yes. Yeah. Now let's say uplifting music, because there are many kinds of music. Yeah. So often when we are in a bad mood, we enjoy terrible music and terrible food. It's resonating on some level. So like this is it. Well, it again, like my friend said, alcohol helps me. No, it doesn't. After some time, you will turn off that music. You will try to eat something healthy. So the point is somehow seeking, like Kriyananda ji said, if you listen to heavy metal and that kind of music, he said the thumping beat over there. He said people feel good because it resonates with the ego. In Sanskrit, the ego's root word is aham. And Swami says dham, 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 dham. And he said on a subconscious level, people feel it's like the music is talking to them. Whereas a saint is trying to get rid of the ego, the aham, and for them, it's almost like poison. So keep that in mind, because we have to apply our free will to say, no, this is not good for me. And this is where real lasting freedom will come. I was once doing a corporate workshop again with people in business suits and all. And I was given 1 hour for the whole presentation. So it was a 5 minute meditation. And it was a very interesting lesson that day because I was part of the men's monastery. So because I had this workshop, we had an evening meditation and I took my formal shoes and tiptoed through the living room where everybody was meditating. And there was a car waiting for me. I went for the workshop and I was a little bit like complaining. I said, now Swami had told me to do such things, but I was like, why can't I just sit and meditate with my brothers? And why do I have to go in all these formals for this workshop? But anyway, I was like, I know it is not the right thing. I'm sorry, Divine Mother. So I went, I did the workshop. And at the very end, when we were meditating for 5 minutes, I asked people, I felt this was a good meditation. People were still. So I said, how was it? And somebody said, oh, it was very peaceful. And somebody said, very nice, very still, calming. And then this one person said, he said, very peaceful. He said, I especially liked the sitar music that you were playing throughout the meditation. And his friend started joking and shaking him. Wake up, this was not a dreaming session, this is meditation. And he says, no, but I like the sitar music. That sitar is this Indian old instrument, stringed instrument. And he said, no, I like the sitar. He said, there was no sitar. He said, there was. It was like, there was no sitar. And I said, wait a minute, I have to intervene. I said, in deep meditation, the inner sound of the Manipur chakra, I said, energy center over here, can be heard in the inner ear as veena, harp, sitar, or other plucked instruments. Now, here's the interesting thing. Right there in his corporate office, in a brief meditation here, and Divine Mother was telling me, so you judging things. You know, like I was saying yesterday, doing God's will, your guru's will, is the most important thing. Christ could have easily told Divine Mother, oh no, let's not do this, let's do that. But they just don't operate like that. Master said, I only do what Divine Mother tells me to do. So our spiritual welfare, our movement towards Christ consciousness depends on these things. So anyway, good music. So it could be instrumental, it could be something which is uplifting, something which is freeing us, something which is enlightening, especially music by a saint. Let's do some practice in between, and then we'll come back to writing. So let's get an experience of, Swami said, Om chanting. This is a technique of healing also. And please get up and stretch if you need to. We'll continue for at least another half an hour or so. Let's actually take a double. Let's all stand up and just stretch. We've been sitting for a while now. Let's rub our hands together, do the full yogic breath or any stretch that you feel like. Breathe out from the mouth as you come down. Inhale up. Exhale down. Do this at your own pace, releasing any tensions behind the legs, in the spine. Let's do 3 to 4 rounds. Let's stretch sideways. Master said our bodies, physical bodies, are compacted life force. He said that's why when you stretch and when you do yoga, exercises, and energization, he said it loosens up and expands, which is why we feel good. Okay. Now let's take a double inhalation. Breathe out and relax. 2 more times. One last time. So we're going to chant Om in different parts of the body. I'll just point out 2 to 3. Then we'll focus at the point between the 2 eyebrows. Tense and relax the legs. Chant Om there. The pelvis and abdomen. One more time. The chest, hands and spine. The head and neck. One more time. Now sitting very still and relaxed. Gently focus at the point between the 2 eyebrows. Lift the gaze there. And we'll chant more softly. First a few times loudly, then softly. And feel that you are gently sending this projection of the sound of Om to the spiritual eye. And as we magnetize the spiritual eye, it starts drawing the energy of all the other chakras of the spine up towards itself. So let's chant Om now at the spiritual eye. Tense and relax the forehead, knit the eyebrows a few times as you chant. Now we will sing softly, try to chant more inwardly, feel the sound coming from as if inside out of the spiritual eye. Now feel that as you chant Om, you are bringing the vibration of those words up from the throat, up the spine, through the brain, and projecting them through the spiritual eye. Now let's try to only chant mentally. Feel the vibration of the music from the harmonium or through your mental chanting. And let's invite the mantra of Om to bless us at the spiritual eye. You can also feel the Master's blessing you there. We'll chant mentally. I'll say it loudly so I can guide you. But 8 to 10 times, let's chant Om mentally at the spiritual eye. Just feel this sound filling the brain and spine. Now silently, only with the music. Keep the gaze uplifted, as if drawn upwards by the magnetism of the spiritual eye. Try to see a light there, or feel energy in a very relaxed way. The more relaxed we are in the forehead, the greater we can feel the flow of energy. You can visualize the eyes of one of the masters or any saint that you pray to. But as Swami used to say, try to go, see those eyes as a window. Try to go to infinity through those eyes. Or try to see any image that you worship, any picture of a saint, God in any form. And let's try to go beyond the form, as if expanding in all directions, from form to formless. Try to see or imagine the spiritual eye as your natural state of being. You're residing in that eye. Master said ultimately it becomes so big that it can accommodate our entire form. Or think of God as joy. As Master said, delight upon delight, endless thrills of delight at the spiritual eye. Let us also try to feel Christ consciousness now as the stillness of the spiritual eye, the stillness between the flow of breath, between thoughts, and you can mentally chant Om when you experience stillness. Chant Om into that stillness, Swami said, to deepen your awareness of it. Let's do this for 2 minutes in silence. Another practice Swami used to recommend is to see your heart as a lotus with the petals turned upwards. And the fragrance of that petal, those petals and flower, rising like devotion, being offered unceasingly at the spiritual eye. Let us take a deep inhalation through our nose. Breathe out from the mouth. One more time. One last time. Inhale and breathe out thrice. And let's gently open our eyes. All right. We'll continue for some more time. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. So, yes, please. About music, yes. Yes. Yes.
And but then I think I read Master May said the drum helps release that heat. So I just wanted to speak to what we just did was so
Yeah.
uplifting and peaceful.
Yeah. First of all, different people have a different requirement. So, of course, we are in a group practice, so we do what is generally a good thing to do. Then, when we are in a smaller group or at individual home, in our homes, when we are doing, the emphasis can be different because, like Master said, true teaching is individual. We have to see what is my need. When drums do get loud, which they absolutely can, that's a challenge with drums and people who play drums. You can have a word with them because it simply may be loud and dissonant, and you just say, the rhythm and let's soften it. The other thing to do is to actually relate to the sound, as you said. That's something I do is because Master's teaching was relate to it on the first chakra. Don't feel you're receiving the drums so much with your ears or your, form. It's more about that. And but the player, you see, a good player should know what is he or she trying to do with the drums. They are trying to loosen the chakras, the vritti in the first chakra primarily. And once you relate on that level, you feel that, oh, this is helpful. But again, once it has served its purpose, then it's an accompanying instrument, so it need not be there all the time. Like even singing, Master said you start singing, and at some point, you have to leave the words behind to really go deep. Even the mental repetition will have to be left behind at some point. So I feel start, make sure they're outwardly just the right sound, then relate to them on the first chakra that, oh, yeah, this is helping. And that's why Master would tell Dr. Lewis, he was shy. And Master said, beat it louder, go for it, doctor. This is good for you. And like, so, but work on Master is trying to then tell him that work on this level, don't work so much on the, and then you bring it up. Okay. Okay, then I'm now looking at my list. Oh, wow. So here's something Sri Yukteswarji, Yogananda's guru, told him when he had just come to join the ashram, his ashram. He said, Mukunda, stay at the spiritual eye all the time. Now, of course, it's hard, but then he added this. He says, the more you stay at the spiritual eye, the faster will be your spiritual progress. And then Master added a very nice addition to that. We should try to be at the spiritual eye, offering the heart's devotion there all the time, or let's say more and more. So I'll repeat, offering the heart's devotion at the spiritual eye for longer and longer periods in a relaxed manner. If we just stay at the spiritual eye, Master said it's good, but it can produce ruthlessness and sheer willpower sometimes. And that is not the intended result, but it can come if we forget to add the heart's upward flow, devotion, and sweetness, the yearning. What you're really offering is the yearning. Yeah. The other very beautiful reason why we should do this is when Swami Kriyananda was with Ramana Maharishi's disciple Yogi Ramaya. Yogi Ramaya told him, be at the spiritual eye, again, same thing all the time. And he said, one reason is if you magnetize the spiritual eye, all other chakras, the energy is lifted indirectly because this is the stronger magnet then. So that's another thing. Of course, we can individually focus on certain chakras too, if that is a need. Now, in the Mahabharata, you'll see the story is designed, or the main characters were alive. I will not go in that detail, but certain teachings are also universally tied to the Mahabharata. For example, the five brothers, the Pandavas, Krishna, of course, the parents of the Pandava brothers, they had two mothers and one father, and then their wife, which interestingly, they had one wife, but it was not a polygamous relationship. So when I explain this, it'll be clear. Master said the teaching in the structure of that family is that we have the five chakras, and he says the point between the two eyebrow is the seat of Christ consciousness or Krishna consciousness, Kutastha Chaitanya. So the brothers, the chakras are being led by Krishna, and Draupadi, who was married to Arjuna primarily, she is Kundalini, the energy that rises up the spine and gives us a very joyful feeling when it comes up the spine. Now, here's the interesting thing. Why does that energy not come up the spine all the time? Swami called it the energy of the universe, locked at the base of each person's spine. He said, our duty is to awaken and uplift that energy and channel it and hold it here, keep it here. Once Draupadi meets Krishna and the Pandavas in the process, once they are all in Krishna, it's a done deal. That's what is trying to happen. Now, why does that energy not rise? And one of the ways Yogananda ji explained that was, he said, the parents of the Pandavas are Pandu. Pandu means white, and white signifies pure discrimination. And the mother is Kunti and Madri, two mothers. Power of dispassion and the power of attachment to dispassion. Now, let's just consider dispassion. Why do we need dispassion? Many times people use, I think it's a semantics. They said, oh, I have to be passionate about this. Now, your heart should be in it. But Swami used to say, why get excited? Because excitement takes the heart's energy out. Now, if you're calm, you can hold that for a while, but if calmness is lost and we are consumed by passion, it will fry the nerves sooner or later. On the other hand, if you're dispassionate, and dispassion does not mean, well, I don't like anything. No, it is to be in the world, but to realize this is simply not the place of lasting fulfillment. So once discrimination and dispassion come together, that this is what should I do? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And this is not the place. I'm not passionate about this. It's okay. I'm here. I'm happy to participate. I'll do what I have to, but I'm certainly not running after things. When those two things come together, it's a strong spirit of renunciation. And then that energy automatically, then you don't have to talk to Kundalini that kindly come up. By adopting those attitudes, Master said, you open the doorway through which Kundalini starts coming up, and then we go through each of the chakras, the Pandava brothers, and when they are in the right attitude, then the energy flows up to them. So, like I said in the beginning, on one level, when I spoke to that nun And I said, oh, focus here. She said, what is this spiritual eye? And we may, by the way, don't feel bad if we don't see it. I'll tell you a story of one time when I had the grace to see it. But if you don't see it, Swami Kirananji never saw it. But he said, because Master had said it's here, I intuited it and I offered myself in it. And so, anyway, keep that in mind, that this interplay of these primary attitudes of dispassion, and of course, do make a study of it later because Master then goes in the detail. Dispassion, discrimination, pure discrimination, and then the Kundalini rises through the chakras and they all merge in Krishna consciousness. Now, this is very interesting. It pertains little bit to the grace, the way I should say God has designed this universe. Again, as I said in the beginning, who is God? Where is He? What's really going on? We are confused. Let's accept it. But once the fog, as Swami said, starts clearing, the picture becomes very clear. It's like, oh, this is how it is. It's like Padre Pio gave a very simple, easy to remember example. He said there was a boy sitting next to his mother. Mother was on a chair. This little boy was on a small stool, and he wanted to talk to his mother, but the mother was completely absorbed and busy doing embroidery. So this boy is waiting. Every now and then he looks here and then he looks up at his mother, and then at some point he said, Mother, what are you doing? We could play, we could do something. What are you doing? And she says, oh, son, I'm making a wonderful scene over here, a beautiful garden. I'm making an embroidery. Now, this boy looks up, and remember, he's now looking at the lower part of the embroidery. He says, beautiful. I don't see any beauty in what you're doing. And she says, is that so? He says, yeah, I see dangling cut threads, irregular patterns. It's all chaos and mismatch. And she said, wait a minute. And she lowers the embroidery, and it's breathtaking. So Padre Pio was saying that if you see God's creation from the reverse side, it doesn't really make sense. If you see it from here, he said, makes a lot of sense. And the goal is God wants you. Once in a while, he will lower the tapestry. But maybe what he's trying to say is, Aditya, get up and take a look at this. Lift your energy. Like Swamiji, when he left his body, people were missing him. Who wouldn't miss a saint? And he came to a devotee and he says, come to the point between the two eyebrows. You'll always find me there. I'm always living in super consciousness. And it's not something out there, which is also why they say this is the inner pilgrimage. That it's good to go to an outward place of pilgrimage, but if that pilgrimage doesn't remind us where we really have to go, so anyway, it's a little incomplete. So the story was this: I was in between two meetings, and it was very sweet because Swami had told me. He said you will also have a very busy life. He said, like mine. So I was like, oh my God. You're like, the saints' word are binding on the universe, they say. So I'm like, okay, but it's been spoken now, and karma is karma. Why not accept it? So anyway, I finished a meeting once. I looked at my watch. I had 5 minutes. So I ran down. I thought I'll go to the kitchen, make a cup of coffee, and come back. Well, what happened that day was when I came down, I was like coming down from here. There was the altar, and just like this, our kitchen was right behind the altar. So just as I was about to go, I had this real clear feeling from the masters. Would you like a blessing? And it was so sweet. I'm sharing this just so you know there is a clear design and pattern that, like Swami said, God works through instruments. So, but interestingly, somehow I think this is God's nature. When He speaks, He's asking you a question, but He gives you the answer also. So he said, would you like a blessing? But just like right behind the question was the blessing that he wanted to give, which was, in this case, I thought it's about the spiritual eye. I have not shared this personally before, but because we're talking about this particular seat today, I'm sharing. So I immediately took a cushion. I said, Masters, of course. I said, if it is your will. I said, yes, I would like a blessing. So I sat down, I looked at the altar. And then the second question came. through whom would you like the blessing? And again, right with that question, the suggestion of one of our ministers was given. And I was in India, this minister was in America. So, and this is 2014, Swamiji had left his body. So it's like, through whom would you like the blessing? And this person was suggested. So right away, I inwardly prayed and bowed. I said, it was a gentleman. I said, sir, if it is your wish, may I please receive this blessing? Just like that, the blessing came. And of course, I enjoyed it. And here's the interesting thing. Just after a minute or so, this feeling said, it was like a thought which speaks to you, know, you get this intuitive feeling that somebody's talking, but of course, it's all silent. It says, now, don't you have a meeting in 2 minutes? I said, I do. So it's like, okay, let's wrap this up. So I thanked the instrument. I, of course, thanked the masters. And I thanked God. I said, again, it's like my schedule had 2 meetings this morning. So our efforts are a little bit like a bank account. It keeps adding. You just don't know when you will need it, when you will be given that money. But our job is, because we enjoy doing what we are doing, and frankly, sometimes because we're talking about the subject of perseverance also, sometimes you don't enjoy what you're doing. Sometimes it's like Swami says, a daily chore. And it's okay. The masters go through it. Swami said for 1 whole year, he was feeling sleepy in meditation. There's nothing you can do about it. Another time he couldn't focus and he went to Master. He said, sir, I'm just not able to focus in meditation these days. And Master, matter of factly, was doing something in the office. He said, that's because you used to laugh a lot in past lives. And Swami said, is that so? And Swami felt bad about it because it's hampering his meditation. And Master said, don't feel too badly. You were happy at that time, but you did laugh a lot. So, and it was just like, because the tongue has a relation to the brain. If the tongue moves a lot or talks a lot and all, generally the mind is restless. Whereas, which is why when we go in seclusion, sometimes people don't even chant, because the goal now is to calm down and go within. So, talking, gadgets, and all of that is kept to a minimum. But yeah, I'll just come. But anyway, I shared this story to underscore the how God sees living instruments. So keep that in mind. Each of us, Swami said, and it's not, yes, some people are obliged to play that role, but everybody should play that role. Swami said, if you've learned something, does it not happen? Let's say you get some a lottery comes to you. You invite friends and you share it with them, or something good happens. So if you've received a blessing from God, why would you not share the book, the teachings, like we share after our meditation, that what I have received? Now I want to serve as an instrument. And of course, this is a very mature group, but once I was doing a meditation class and a prayer class, and I was teaching the basics of healing prayers. I said, now rub your hands, Yogananda said, and we repeat this prayer. So everybody repeated. I said, now raise your hands and chant Om 3 times. And I'll stand up so everybody can see. So this man in the front row, he's a college student, he started like this. He said, okay, Om. Then he did this. Om. Om. And I was leading everybody, so I couldn't say anything in between. But I was like, no, all 3 ohms are like this. And he says, but what about me? He said, the ohm is going out of me. So I said, it's not going out of you, it's going through you. It's not reducing it. The instrument is blessed by what flows through it, not only to it. So I said, don't be a dead end. So what we receive when we share, it's like a mom will give 2 chocolates, and they say, okay, now here's, then give one to your brother or sister. So you take and you share. So that is very applicable in our blessings also, that Master, Swami, and I could tell you so many stories. Swami is very much here. And his disciples, in India, he did say it in 2012. He said, I am a guru. And it's again a whole deep subject. Now, he's not the guru of the work. The 5 masters are the guru of the work, but he was a guru within the work, a product of the work. Of course, he was the founder outwardly of Ananda, but within the spiritual work of the masters, he did find God. Master had told him, you will find God, and he did become, thankfully, a guru. Otherwise, Swami said, what else are we doing? If you're not producing saints, he said, let's shut shop. So we are moving in that direction, and what we receive, we must share. Yes.
So you talk about restless mind, talk about sleeping. My biggest obstacle, which, last night you were talking about, not what's stopping me, but it's emotion. It's emotion that just comes up and it carries me all through the day. So then I'm walking in that room in the morning, like, I know I'm gonna cry, like, I don't feel sad, but I sit there and boom, it's just like, I go again, and it's over, over. Is that something that everybody experiences or just me?
See, what's your good name? Yeah.
Laurie.
Laurie. So Swami used to say, lead with your heart. He said, keep the heart open. Too many people have, unfortunately, a closed heart in the world. We live in very intellectual times. But once you open your heart, like Master had a very big heart, and Swami said a big heart is subject to hurts. You can think of it as greater surface area. So, but he said, once your heart is open and the feelings in the form of emotions are rising, then the question is, now what do I do about it, as you're asking? I would say, first, get a harmonium, because it's really, because Swami, that's what Master told Swami. He said, you're too much in your mind, or in this case, you're too much in your emotions. You see, our emotions, it's a lot of energy, but we have to channel it, redirect it. Um,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, but you got to chant. You say, hey, I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling hurt, I'm feeling sad. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. It's like Bhim was like this, one of the Pandavas. He was the heart center. He had a lot of energy, he had a lot of emotions, but his older brother, the Vishuddha Chakra, was Yudhishthira. And Yudhishthira stands for calmness. So he would go to the younger brother and he would say, calm down, calm down. And this is also the center for voice. So when you channel your voice, when you sing, you can be in front of Master's picture and something like that. So try that. Second, I would say do try energization exercises. You can try some journaling. Talk to the masters. Really, if you're upset, no better person than the masters. Or seek out one or two calm friends. I've always, when I have a long day, busy day or something, in the end, I just tell some friends. And Swami used to do this all the time. He said, can we go out for a dinner? And again, these are friends who will not reinforce your emotions. They'll tell you straight how it is. I mean, I really have cultivated friends who'll tell me I'm crazy. Really? Yeah, exactly. Because I'm like, many times people say, oh, I don't know how to say this. Well, say it. You are the person who should say it the way it is, which is to say that, if I'm oversensitive about something, or if I am not doing something and going down a road which is not helping matters. So, anyway, what I'm saying is cultivate some calm, even friends. Right. No, that's good. And that's fine. Swami used to say, not at all. No. See, channel it in service. Swami said sometimes in meditation, so much joy comes. He said he would weep for sheer joy. And Master used to weep. I mean, I'll tell you something. I was explaining this to a Russian friend in India recently, and we had gone somewhere, and I said, "Oh, this is hallowed ground. A saint has lived here." And she's like, "Yeah." So I said, "Why don't you roll?" And her English is very minimal. She said, what do you mean? I said, you can roll on the ground over here. She said, no, really? I said, I'm joking. I said, don't roll publicly. But I said, Master used to roll in the sand and soil where one of the disciples of Ramakrishna, Sri M, not Sri M, Master M, Master Mahashaya. When Master Mahashaya used to come and see Yogananda, then when he used to go, he said, Master Mahashaya had so much joy that he said, I would roll in the ground where he had walked. Now, it seems a bit quite excessive, but why not? And Master used to cry for God. until his eyes were swollen sometimes. So don't feel shy. It's good. Finally, the energy is coming up. Now the question is, what shall we do about it? What else could we do when such energy is rising? I know, Kelly, you have a lot of energy.
You know, it doesn't help anyone, it just doubles the pain in the world. So, but to meet it through, and with the desire for integration, to move into it slowly and to feel into it, allowing it, because it's the resistance that persists, right? So if you just surrender into it and allow it to come up and draw it up to the spine, but it's like, you don't want to eliminate it, you don't want to have it go away, because I think that that fear and anger and sadness is all the joy squisher, and underneath, you know, when we start to move that up and clear, then spontaneous joy begins to happen because it's lifted out, and so it becomes, you welcome it, you say thank you, Guru, for bringing this up, for transmuting me.
Yeah, it seems never ending, like it's a fountain of not stopping, and it's not even like from this life. I believe it's not even from this life.
Well, that's good, you know, do more kriyas. Yeah.
You know, to allow it to really identify with it, step back from it, that's how it becomes integrated.
I would add with this, self-care.
Yeah.
Sometimes that energy is so strong that you have to take seclusion day to do a reset.
Very good. You know, one time Swami Kriyananda ji, he used to go somewhere in the US to a place. A lady had a cabin in the woods and he would take a seclusion there. And one day he had come out of, maybe it was 2 weeks or I don't know, months of seclusion. And he had just come out and she was serving him dinner. At the same time, there was a family that was doing a cross country drive and they stopped at the same place and they were all having meals. But this gentleman said they were quarreling in that car all the time from the time they left. And he said that we finally said, okay, let's just have our meals and go to bed. And he said, we came on the table and he said, I saw this man. He was just silent. He was emanating so much peace that he asked with the lady, who is he? And she said, oh, he's Swami Kriyananda. He comes for seclusions here. And the person got to know Swami. And he said, now, interestingly, after the dinner, all the people who were quarreling, grown-ups, they all said good night to each other. They made up, they apologized. And he said the rest of our journey was peaceful. The point is, many times again, like people ask, what does Ananda really do for the world? Well, we change consciousness. We change our consciousness. And with our consciousness, our feelings change. And it's an unseen gift. But isn't God also like that? We are aiming for something of the spirit. So yes, the world becomes a better place in the process, but our main goal through seclusion also, many times people feel it's not a work. It is a very big work. It's a duty. So thank you. Okay, I'll quickly go through my list over here. um, Yoga, we've been doing yoga, full yogic breath, padahastasana. Anytime, especially we do a forward bend, balasana, you can feel more energy in the spine and at the point between the two eyebrows. Another thing Master said, Swami said, is you can just gently tap over here. Once in a while, you can pinch over here because you have to remind yourself that this is where I want to be. The other thing is, Swami said, don't think of this as one extreme of the body that, oh, this is, he said, this is where the specific gravity of your body should be. Not from a physics point of view, but if somebody says, Aditya, where are you? This is where I am. I should be found here. I should not say, well, I'm way down there somewhere. Swami says, learn to make this the center of your specific gravity. Okay, any other thoughts? What works for people? Yes. Mm-hmm.
We just remodeled our kitchen, you'll see it when you come. And it's, my husband said, I saw you in the room and you looked like you were full of light. And it was because we changed the colors and the feeling of the whole room is different.
Wow. Is it also full of food?
Yeah.
Yeah. if I'm coming, then I should ask, I should find out. Okay, okay. Well, food and light. Great. Okay, wonderful. Yes, sir. Very true. Yeah. You know, like Master said to Swami about that monk I was sharing yesterday, he said he has stopped asking for help. And this happens quite often. You know, kids are very expressive. If they're upset with you, they go in a room, they shut the door, and they don't talk. Well, guess what? Grown-ups do that too. Whereas if you're not happy about something, just talk to somebody. And you can say, you know, I know I'm crazy. I just need to talk to, I need to vent out. Or like Jayaji, one of our teachers, no, you all know Jayaji, he would say, okay, you have 5 minutes. And then he would say, are you asking for feedback or are you asking for support? And it's good to ask for feedback because that's really what changes it. But sometimes he said, if all you want is support, that just listen me out. Tomorrow we can talk about feedback, which is fine. Okay. Now here's another thing. I want to show it to you. There's a beautiful painting of Jyotish ji. And if you're the kind who is benefited by art, I would highly recommend you have this or something like this in your meditation room. And what's really happening is, of course, this is the spiritual eye, and master is meditating, and feel that it's you who's meditating. And the spiritual eye is opening up the inner universe over here. This is this, you know, you are becoming one with everything. So it's a very, very good reminder. And you can see now exactly how big the spiritual eye is. Swami said it starts small, but he said it's an astral reality. There's, you know, it can get much, much bigger over there. Okay, by the token, all our techniques of meditation, you know, try to see, don't see them separate, like Om technique or energization exercises. I mean, it's finally trying to bring energy over here. Master said when you tense and relax and tense and relax the body at different times, he said it frees up the mind and the life force from body consciousness. And he says, then life force takes over the body. It's not bound. He said it takes over the body and healing happens. I mean, there are so many stories. Once somebody was giving Kriyanandaji a head massage. And at the end of it, this person, you know, he said his head was like a feather. Is that, you know, it's just like you've become so energy aware. And if you see his pictures also, you know, he had become almost translucent towards the end of his life, which is a real proof that yes, we are in a physical body, but the light, you might say the bulb, the electricity, we don't see the electricity, we see the bulb. But once you see the brightness of the bulb, you say, you know, there's a lot of electricity going through it, looks like. So a saint, and we are all like that, that bit by bit through energization. By when you spend time with Om, you become like Om. Om, Master said, and Om is not just the sound, light is like that also. Jayaji once was telling us some years ago, he said, you know, all the 8 aspects of God are Om. He said, don't ask me how, but they are. And what he was trying to say is that our mind breaks it down so many times. Oh, I have this, I have not had that. But whichever one is coming to you, go through that. The other example I would give, we are talking about Om, is one of our teachers was asked once that when this person said, I've been trying this Om technique for 1.5 months, I haven't heard the Om sound. So our teacher said, oh, it's okay. You know, sometimes it comes to some people early, it takes time to others. And this person said, how long did it take for you to hear Om? And he said, you don't want to know. They said, no, no, tell us, tell us. And he said, 20 years. He said, 20 years? He said, I tried my best to stay in touch with the technique and keep giving it energy, even though there were no returns. I mean, there were smaller returns, but nothing like the sound of Om, Om. But here's the interesting thing. He said, but the day I heard the sound of Om was the day Swami Kriyananda had blessed me for a new step in my life. So again, on one level, a technique is all, which is why Om technique is given after discipleship. Because at some point, the technique the technique will work in the beginning also. You can see a YouTube video and it's okay. But the technique imbued with the consciousness of the master is what really opens up the full potential of that technique. So Swami used to say, don't meditate alone, invite the masters. That's why we have the altar. That's why we have the prayer. That master looks like I'm alone in the temple, but I want you to be here with me. Okay, any other thoughts? And then we'll listen to one of our poems as a closing. Should we stop or continue a few more minutes? Nobody wants to say stop. Yeah, I'm just at my final page here. Yeah, this is another beautiful thing. Swamiji said, by the way, I'll give you this list later. I'll type it out. Master said, you can look into the eyes of one of the masters and or see them at the spiritual eye and then say, once you have seen them or felt them clearly, you say, please introduce me to God. He said, that's how there's the guru outside and then there's the guru inside. And you say, introduce me to God. Very beautiful thing. Japa, spiritual eye, chanting Om at the spiritual eye, something we had done. Okay, and finally, just because we are talking of Christ consciousness, which is, as I said in the beginning, all pervasive, a small portion of God becomes this big creation, and in this creation, God is everywhere. Sometimes it feels like, well, what is my next step? And of course, all of these are our next step. But Swami says, if you see, you have been taking those steps all along to some degree. He said, for example, God himself comes to us, perhaps as a family member who is encouraging you to meditate, or he'll come as a quote, as a book, as a scripture, as an experience, as a teacher. And he says, as you keep taking those steps and you keep that openness. See, the important thing, as we've been discussing, is to realize what are we after. Like Ramakrishna said, you should be like a thief. You have seen that there is gold in the neighbor's house. You know they are going on vacation. And you just can't wait for night to come. Now, remember, this is a thief and gold. We are after another kind of treasure. So he said, how would that thief feel once he has seen that gold? He's just looking at his watch and the sun and just can't wait. So he said, once you know there's a treasure at your spiritual eye and in your heart, then you're like, okay, my evening sadhana, my morning sadhana, my weekend satsang. Many times, where we've been speaking about satsang, and many of you are on a pilgrimage to India, that, again, like Christ said, where two or three are gathered in my name, there I am. And Master, by the way, was saying he was not talking only about the physical form. Once in a while, he has appeared. But what he was saying is Christ consciousness is easy to feel in a company of people. And I think all of us would know that it's easy to feel those aspects of God when we are together. So in a satsang, many times, you may just have to drag yourself. You don't feel like going, but what's the special thing you're going to do at home for 1 hour? I haven't found myself doing anything so important that I had to miss a satsang. And my reasoning has been this over the years. Have you found God, Aditya? Nope. Go to the satsang. And if you find God, still go to the satsang, because now you must share it with others. So, because if we are saying we are a family, we should seek help and we should offer help. So a satsang does both these things for us all. Okay, let's then, any final thoughts, questions? Yes, Rachel.
Maybe also.
Absolutely.
Swami, as a channel.
Absolutely. I would actually say tune into all of Swami's books, because that is exactly what he's trying to tell us, that it's art, it's music, leadership. Leadership seems, like I said, that corporate workshop. I thought, oh my God, corporate workshop. No. God, why is Rajarsi Janakananda, Yogananda's most advanced disciple? Imagine if your leader in a corporate was a saint. Become that person. So it's not the problem with the place or position, whatever is your dharma. Swami said, lead that and Bring God over there. And he led by example. Master led by example. So yeah, all of those things. Parenting the same way. Monks and nuns can become very selfish because it's all about you and your practice sometimes. On the other hand, in a family, you're forced to care for one another. But there one can little bit say, well, it's okay if I don't meditate. No, monks and nuns should serve everybody as their family. Householders should think that, okay, I'm serving my family, but why not serve others? So again, these teachings, but small, small things. When we take these steps, basically Christ consciousness, as I read from Master's book, it will come to us once we have done our part. And the Guru says, now is time. And that's a very, very sacred time. That lady saint who I had met, who was in silence, one of our members in the group, they said, Mother, when will I find God? It's like, well, you met a saint, might as well get the date and time. And she just chuckled. And she was interestingly speaking telepathically through her son. And she said, some weeks ago, somebody from your ashram had come to my ashram in the Himalayas and asked me, when will I get samadhi or Christ consciousness? And then she chuckled and she said, when will you get it? I don't know. You don't know. Only God knows and your guru knows. She said, we are all little children. We are in kindergarten. Let's keep doing our work. Let's keep studying and doing what we've been told to do. And at the right time, God and Guru will give it to us, which is exactly how Master said, or Christ said, God comes as a thief when you're least expecting him. So we can't give up hope. At the same time, like Sri Yukteswarji told Master, he said, can you change the timing of the sunrise? He said, no. He says, that's how much control you have. So keep doing our part. Rohan, you had a question? Absolutely, that's huge. Yeah, absolutely. Being in nature, yeah, yeah. And we have those books by Bharat Cornell, Sharing Nature. Okay, let's take a moment then as we close our discussion. Once again, thanking Christ, our masters, God, for not only showing us the goal and the potential, but giving us the gift of a spiritual family to walk with, the teachings, the milestones, the techniques. And as we apply these teachings in our daily lives, as the light of God, as His consciousness, His will is revealed more and more to us, uniquely in our lives, maybe channel that blessing to many others, that we all be uplifted in His light. Let's rub our hands together. Send this prayer to God and Gurus, asking for the blessings for everyone. Om Shanti. Amen. All right. Oh, I forgot all about. So, shall we listen? We have 10 minutes or so? Yeah. Okay, now we listen to Swami Kriyanandaji guiding us into the experience of Samadhi as Yoganandaji described it. It's a 9-minute poem.